Educating Geeks, the podcast where friends help friends discover new passions. I'm geek host Alice, and in the studio today we also have
Sara,
Andrea,
and we have guest host
Krissy,
who is joining us from NCT. She last joined us for the First Time Film Club podcast, A Knight's Tale.
which was so fun.
It was fun.
So
We're so
fun.
happy to have you back.
Thank you.
All right, so today we are going to educate Drea about Hellboy and Hellboy II, The Golden Army. So I'll just give the general spoiler alert. We are going to talk about the movies. So, you know.
Shocker.
Right. All right. So, Drea, can you give us a brief rundown of the general plot lines for the two films, just for anyone who needs to get reoriented?
Yes. So to bring us all on the same page, Hellboy 1 is about the introduction to the character of Hellboy, and the bad guys are Nazis, because that's what all bad guys are, apparently. And it introduces this character that is a small child that is like half devil, half person, I guess, and his integration into society as they take down, you know, the Nazis.
The baddies.
The baddies. And then Hellboy 2 is about fast forwarding into the future as to this golden army that's been legend from beyond, where, you know, humans and these other, I think it was elves, and there was goblins and orcs.
They're elves, yeah.
It's like goblins, orcs, elves made an agreement with the humans to, you know, they'll stay in their place and we'll stay in our place and we'll find peace. And it's about one of the elves not liking that and thinking that humans did wrong. And
a hot elf, I might add.
yeah. And he decides to raise this like mythical army to destroy all of humanity. And the only person who can save us is Hellboy.
Of course.
Because it's Hellboy.
Because it's Hellboy.
Yeah. So
you know that from the title of the movie, right?
So basic plot just there.
All right, so for you, so Hellboy came out in 2004, and then Golden Army in 2008, if I'm remembering correctly, and it's now 2014. Why? Any particular reasons why these movies didn't call out to you thus far?
I think I saw bits and pieces of the first one, like 2004, 2005. I don't know. I just never was super... I don't know. I've never been really drawn to it, and... I don't know.
That's fair.
I don't know. I just was never very drawn to it, I guess.
How about you, Krissy? You've seen both of these films before,
I did.
right?
Yes, I saw them both in the theater when they first came out. And I think even though I didn't have a character history through the books or anything, I'm a fan of anything that's superhero, comic booky, you know, geeky. I'm into it, so I went to see both of them and enjoyed them. Although when the second one came out in 2008, it came out the same weekend we had the opening weekend for NCT, so we had many friends in town with us. We all went to see it, and it was not well received by some others in the group, who then sort of ruined the experience by
bummer, right?
teasing and making fun of it. Yeah, but I enjoyed them both.
Excellent. How about you, Sara?
I never saw the first one. I don't know why. I just really didn't do movies and stuff then. The second one I saw, I don't know with whom. I don't know what the circumstances were. It was probably somebody else's idea, and I was just tagging along, or it was one of those things where, like, whoa, let's go to a movie. What is there? This one appeals slightly more than these other crappy ones. And I was pleasantly surprised. I liked it enough to come back and, like, watch the first one and participate in this conversation.
Yeah, so I got introduced to Hellboy through my ex-husband. He had read the comic books and then the films subsequently, and so I sort of got turned on to them by him. And I have since I mean the trade run goes 17 books. I don't own all 17, but I own quite a few of them, and I own the special edition of the DVD with all the extra commentaries and extra stuff. So I kind of love
Alice, Gold Star.
I kind of love Hellboy. I like Hellboy 2, The Golden Army 2, but Hellboy will always have a special place in my heart. I'm really curious for you, Sara, because you said that you saw Golden Army first and then went back and watched Hellboy, because for me, they kind of throw you in. Like, so I had the benefit of not only having seen the first one, but also having history through the comic books. And when Sara and I watched it together, when you said that to me, I was like, started thinking about it, and I was like, because I feel like they kind of throw you in, and they kind of expect you to have a certain base knowledge. And when you watched it the first time, did you feel at all disoriented, or did you just jump right into the story?
You
and
just
felt
bought
okay
it the
with
way they sold it.
Yeah, I mean, this movie didn't take a lot of time to explain in kind of you're a 3-year-old and we have to lay this out because we know you're not capable of forming thoughts based on context, which I appreciated, and they were good enough at it. I think that they could have done better seeing it the second time around, knowing what I did now going into it. I think they could have done better, but I understand it was a long movie, and they did just fine for me. I didn't feel lost. I didn't walk out of there feeling like this wasn't my movie. It wasn't really memorable, but I didn't have a negative reaction to it.
Gotcha. I sometimes wonder that when you come with the history, in some ways it hinders you.
Because you know too much.
You know too much.
At that
You have
point.
expectations.
Yes, exactly.
And you have expectations. So.
Well, and then with comic book movies, there's usually so many books backing up. And when I would watch the X-Men movies, and they were, fairly good for an introductory audience, but then I had this boyfriend at the time who was super into them and would say, oh, that's this person, that's this power. And so I would get all that background knowledge that I wouldn't have gotten, and it made it so much richer. But it wasn't so I know with comic books that there's a lot going on that I'm not picking up on, but there's still enough going on in a well-made comic book movie that I like. I was fine.
It doesn't matter. Yeah. How about you guys? Did your lack of any previous history with the comic books bother you in any way, shape, or form?
No, not at all. And I agree with you, Sarah, about the second movie. I think you can jump right in because you can make assumptions based on, like, okay, this big guy is Hellboy. I'm in. I get it. Like, he's kind of a devil guy. Yeah. All right. Well, he's got a big hand and, horns clearly that are gone. So, yeah, she's got fire. Mm-hmm. All right.
I'm in.
Fish guy's psychic. Yep. Tell
Yep.
me more. Keep it coming. So,
Gas guy.
Yeah, the gas guy took a little bit of what is that? What's happening here, gas guy? But you don't have better technology now.
With Johan,
Adorable.
I don't know. I loved Johan, but I think they almost since they didn't give you much of an introduction to any of the other characters, and they gave so much of this introduction to him, it was like overkill. You're like, I get it. I get it.
I didn't feel like they gave so much introduction in terms, and maybe this isn't what you meant, in terms of information, but his entrance was certainly a big deal.
Yes, like
But
it was
in
a
terms
spectacle for him to enter.
To enter, yes, but in terms of giving you reasons like why and how and what's going on, they didn't.
No, but for
I'm
him,
sorry.
no, I'm sorry. It was just for him coming in, like all the other characters you were just given it. And even in the first one, you weren't like, there weren't these big build-ups. And like this one, you were just like,
I feel like in the first film it's because it's a Hellboy origin story.
Yeah.
As many comic book stories, even ones that they retell over and over and over, they just keep retelling the damn
looking
origin
at you,
story.
Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But it's also a Liz Sherman origin story because you
Yeah.
get the history of how she became aware of her powers and stuff like that. It's really only Abe Sapien who they really give you they give you a little piece, but you don't really get any sort of visual storytelling around where he came from.
You get like a third-party perspective on where he came from.
He's already there.
Exactly.
Oh, he's always been in that. He's always been in
that
that tank.
eating eggs and reading books. So of those 3 main characters, Hellboy, and Sarah hates it when I do this, Hellboy, Liz, and Abe Sapien, how would you order them in terms of your favorite?
I want to be best friends with Abe.
Oh
Yeah.
I'm
For me, it's Abe, but like hands down. There's like not even a debate, really.
Yeah, no debate here.
Yeah, Abe.
Hellboy would be next.
Yep.
And then there would be Liz.
I don't know if can I just not put her on my list? Like, can I just have a list of 2 instead? Like, is that okay?
I feel like I would just pat her head and just be like, "Oh, honey,
Honey,
and,
no.
Like,
no.
do you need a ride to get some like Prozac or something?"
Do you think it's because of the way that she speaks? Like, I am bothered by the way that Selma Blair speaks because she kind of has this, like, back of the mouth whininess. Like,
That's really good, Selma
use
Blair.
your full voice, Selma Blair.
Well, and she's just so like she's just sad all the time. Like I don't know if it's because the actress is depressive or if the character is depressive.
She's
But
like
she's
she's
a
the original
bummer.
comic book like emo. Just give her some real dark black eyeliner and
Well, in the comic book, she's certainly not a Pollyanna in any way, and obviously, whatever performance she was giving, Mike Mignola and Guillermo del Toro enjoyed enough that they had her back, not only for this film but 2 animated films, and she'll probably be in Hellboy 3 for heaven's sakes. So obviously, something she's doing is reflective for them of the character, and since Mike Mignola is the creator of the character, she must be getting something right.
Yeah, but I don't feel like he would be a good judge of that because the character itself seems to be pretty lacking. So if an actress doesn't really bring much to something that's not really there in the first place, I don't feel like the creator that created that would be bothered.
Well, but I'm saying that it's his character, so whatever she's doing must at least be okay for him.
He's not
so
looking
you can
for another actress,
right? So I mean,
Right.
you can take umbrage with him and say, "Gee, Mike Mignola, could you not have come up with a better character for God's sakes?" But at least in terms of how he envisioned the character that he created, she must be doing something right.
And she also doesn't.
But she drives me crazy.
She doesn't bring a lot to the table, I think, in terms of like star power. So they're choosing her again and again. You know, she may have had more star power in 2004 than in 2008. I feel like she wasn't super relevant.
But nobody had any star power except for Ron Perlman.
Certainly not Douglas Jones. I mean,
Yeah.
Broom, John Hurt.
John Hurt.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
He was my favorite part of that movie, and they killed him.
And Jeffrey Tambor, I think, is a
Is
recognizable
fairly well known.
face.
Yeah.
When we were watching Golden Army and the hot white guy with the yellow ombre at the end of his hair,
Yeah.
I was like, I just like checked out so I could like look at IMDb, and he's not really been in anything recognizable, and that would have been a really great place to stunt cast, and they just didn't.
Are you talking about the elf?
Yeah,
The Prince.
Nuada.
Prince
Prince
Nuada.
Nuada.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
for
there
sure.
were a lot of other like, oh, that should be, and then like the princess, I was like, that's not Callista Flockhart. Like, I just feel like that they missed a lot of opportunities for actually bringing big names in.
But
in
I'm
Hellboy
okay with
2.
that though, because I don't feel like I missed out on anything by not having a big name actor, if that makes sense. Like, I still think like I like the second movie better than I like the first movie. And Alice is shaking her head no. That's all right. I still love you.
It had so much. It clearly had a bigger budget. That it did surprise me that they
second
made the
one.
choice.
Oh, yeah.
The second one,
Yeah.
that they did make a choice to not bring in.
Well, that's because
a bigger
Guillermo
actor
wanted
than
to spend all of his
Farley.
money on his creatures.
He wanted to spend all his money on showing the blades being spun around and around and around and around.
But yeah.
Which is expensive. I
Yeah.
mean, you spin a blade 3 times, you've spent $1 million,
know.
right?
Yeah,
there.
I mean, and you got to make sure you have enough
Hands
time,
down.
money to put that in your cut. You know, we need at least an hour of the movie needs to just be blades being swung.
Yeah, for me it does.
It's the blade
Because that's
factor.
effing hot.
Yeah. Yes.
So,
And see for me,
I don't know what your problem
and see
is.
for me, I was like, okay, I get it. You're
The
good with
money
the blade.
they spent
Let's move
on stunt choreography was very well appreciated by
Yes,
me and
yes,
Alice.
especially the very end of the second one.
And I was wrong when we were talking about it. It's not. So the gentleman who plays Kruna in the first film, who's the steampunk guy,
Yeah.
who kills everybody with his
Yeah.
blades, it was the fight choreographer for the first film. But the second film is Man Ching Chan, who actually is the fight choreographer for a lot of Jackie Chan films. And that's why that fight choreography is so goddamn good.
I can say I could see that. I can see that.
It's very good.
It's very good.
It's very pretty.
Yes.
I could
loved it.
totally leave Liz Sherman though.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I agree with the sad. And I agree in the second film, well, as many of you know, I have a real hard time with romances and action movies. They just drive me crazy. And I feel bad, too, because with Krissy, when we did A Knight's Tale, I was like, again, the female lead. Do we need her? Can we make the film without her?
You can totally take her out of that film.
And
I don't agree. I don't think I agree. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, no, I was going to say, and she's a pivotal character in the comics, so I don't think they ever would have made it without her. But in the second film, she just comes off as sort of like the bad, whiny girlfriend. You know, so I just feel like it's like there's nothing to like about her for me. And I'm not rooting for her. I'm not rooting for the romance. None
Poor
of it.
Krissy, like, looks like we just
around,
crushed her
yeah,
hopes and
no.
dreams over here.
Because I think that he needs Hellboy needs something to root his commitment to humanity, a reason to not be the beast of the apocalypse. And for him, it's his love of Liz, because he doesn't have much affection for any of the other human beings in his life. And she's the only person who can really root him and anchor him to know the human race is worth saving, and there's something worth living for that's bigger than candy and cats.
Yeah, I hear you, and I get that, but I just have that problem where that's not what I want my female characters to be. You know, so her only point is so that Hellboy can do what he needs to do. It always bothers me.
Well, and for me, like, if that's what she was supposed to do, she wasn't doing a very good job of it. Like, she wasn't doing a very good job of being like supportive, and you know, like she was leaving, and she wasn't. Like, what she was supposed to be doing to anchor him and what he needed her for and what her character was doing were two different things. And it was like, well, if you're not going to be present in the moment, then no, just don't be here. Like, just don't show up.
Well, you don't think that it might be like a struggle for her to, like, you know, come to terms with, like, I blow up places. Then secondarily, like, I'm going to have a romance with a demon, essentially. Like, there's probably a little bit of questioning whether or not you're making good choices, and then
we could debate this left and right, because my argument would be like, okay, then let's have that conversation. Let's not have the conversation about why there's cat food on your fucking toothbrush. Like, what the hell? That's like the worst.
So emotionally stunted that's how they have to talk about it. That's what I was thinking.
Is how many adult relationships unfold in the real world,
so,
unfortunately.
My thought would be, if I had a young girl and I wanted her to look up to the female character in the movie, would I want her to look up to Liz Sherman? No. Probably not. So that's kind of,
I'll agree with you. No, yeah.
That's kind of where I'm like, do I really, like, how do I feel about this female characters generally? Like, is this someone who has qualities that I can look up to? And even if her qualities are like, even if they're a bad person, if they've got strong qualities, like, you still like, okay, there's still things to admire. But for me, I just drew blank. I mean, she clearly loves him, but that's about as far as I can take that.
Yeah.
So I'll give her that. She loves him, but that's about.
I think she does sort of find a way to control her power from the first movie to the second movie, where it's something that's in control of her, and then she's, you know, able to be in control of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
True.
I did find her a little bit more interesting in the first movie, in that her struggle was finding herself and finding control of her power. And then once she got control of that, then she just started being whiny in the second movie. I thought that
romance whiny.
Well, and not just that, but you've got this whole like pregnancy thing in play, and you're just like, oh, really? Can we not have can we give a woman something more to life than just have
pregnant.
babies? Yeah.
And can we get a pregnancy test in a movie that looks like an actual pregnancy test?
Yeah.
Do we not understand pregnancy test technology, or do we think that people in the world don't understand it? So you have to have giant peen
like stick on the end.
Well, and how that works?
How many of them does she just like have laying around? Like,
they at the unit, they got to keep got a whole room.
Whatever you need.
It was a pretty classic, you know, in lots of women getting pregnant movies where they go to the drugstore and they buy like 57 and yeah, whatever.
But what better pregnancy test do you need than
the alien telling you
my
you're pregnant?
hand can see what's happening, and I'm guaranteeing you right now that you're pregnant.
How did she know that it was twins?
I don't know.
I wondered that myself.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Maybe Abe told her.
I like the finger pointing that just happened there too. That was excellent.
Also simultaneous.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I and then while we're talking about this, like I just don't understand the physiology of how does this random species and a human manage to accidentally make twin babies? Like
Twilight science.
Does nobody use birth control anymore in movies?
No.
Do they make birth control big enough for Hellboy?
Well, you're making an assumption there. Size of hand has no direct correlation to size of penis, Trey.
You don't know that.
It has been scientifically proven.
Yeah. Well, I think movies have taught us. Yeah. Movies have taught us that anything can have a baby with anything else, no matter what
Pretty
cross
much.
species, you know, and then
with
we're gonna
no
get...
worry or complication.
No.
Except for the end of Twilight, which was just horrifying.
Well, but
and we don't need to talk
movies
about
have always
that.
also taught us that, like, whatever the baby hybrids are, they're going to be really good looking. have awesome superpowers.
Well, and
so like we should be encouraging this. Everything that's super should be breeding with something. We need more super babies out there.
Absolutely.
Super babies.
And
Super babies.
our friend Dom, Krissy and I have a friend Dom that has an affinity for mixed race people, and he and I are both mixed race, and we just wholeheartedly agree that mixed race people are just far more beautiful than.
Yeah. So let's get some mixed super.
Mixed
Let's
species.
get super in there. Yeah.
The
I'm
uber
into it. I'm
white,
for it.
white girl in the corner over here is feeling a little like upset.
It's not our fault that we're more beautiful than everybody else.
And just remember that race is a social construct.
I'm beautiful too.
So we have some mixed feelings about Liz Sherman, but it sounded like we all kind of love Abe Sapien. So what are the various reasons why people love Abe, other than I just love the sidekick? I never go for the hero.
Yeah, me too. I love me a skinny sidekick.
Yep.
I loved in the second movie how they made him, because the first movie they kind of present him, it's not like cold and calculating, but very much so intellectual and not emotional based character. Like he's like, no, don't do that. I know you're like, really strong headed and like driven by your emotions, Hellboy, but no, don't do that. And then the second one, when you mix him with Princess Nuala, and he has like those like emotional human moments, and he like just thinks about the poetry and finds the piece in the book, and like I just thought that was such an interesting development that he didn't super emotional.
Yeah, they gave him some character
Some
growth
depth,
there, which was
yeah.
nice. Yeah, for sure. But smart, skinny sidekick. I'm down. I'll play with that.
Yeah, I'm in.
Yeah, I mean, I would hang out in his library all the time. I'd just be like, no, don't get out of your tank. I'm just gonna sit here and read, and you can read in your tank, and I'll hang out here.
We'll just sit by the
And-
tank.
Yeah, and
I'll turn the pages.
yeah,
Let me know. Yeah.
we'll read them together.
I'm not going to eat any of the eggs, but that's good.
No, I'll give you some eggs in your little egg chute, but don't touch my eggs in my egg chute because I'm not ready to have a hybrid baby with you, Abe Sapien.
What was that about mixed race babies being more beautiful, Sarah?
I'm just not ready right now. We'll talk about this later, Abe, maybe in like 5 years.
So does this mean that most people have kind of a love-hate relationship with Hellboy, and there are sort of things about his badassery that we enjoy, and then things about his anti-hero-ness perhaps that we don't like? Or how do people feel about
I think I
Red?
really liked the character. I don't know. I just felt like it came across on the screen a little one-dimensional at times.
Yeah,
And
he's a pretty one-dimensional character in my mind.
yeah, I liked the character, but then sometimes I didn't like how it was played, but I imagine if I read the trades, really like the character. I can see myself really liking the character, but I just couldn't fall in love with him during the movies.
How about you guys?
I find myself frustrated by his oppositional defiance.
Yeah.
Well
I'm
said.
frustrated
Miss
by
Krissy.
it. Yeah.
Well said.
The fact that he acts like a 15-year-old.
Yeah, but specifically one who's going to agree to something knowing in his heart that he has no intention of towing that line, but he'll agree to it in order
Yeah.
to get off the leash. And then, even to the point in the second movie where he somewhat betrays his friends to achieve his want, which is to be visible.
Right.
Yeah. I'm frustrated by that.
Yeah.
But
Little bit.
I still like Hellboy quite a bit. His badassery is fantastic.
It's fun. Yeah.
He seemed less badass in the second movie. He seemed more like not whiny relationship-y in the same way that Liz was, but still kind of whiny.
Well, there's also just straight up less action in the second film.
That's true.
I mean, the first film is a lot of kicking ass in the subway and kicking ass in the museum and, kicking ass here and kicking ass there, whereas there's a lot more talky stuff in the second film. So you don't see him being badassery.
Seems like
as
the
much.
second one is more of a set piece, costume oriented, creature oriented than
Yeah.
fight.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, and a lot of the other characters get to fight in the second one. You see Abe fight more in the second one. You see
Liz
Liz fight a little bit more. In the
Burn-
second
You should
burn
be
things.
running.
You see Liz burn things.
God.
I was surprised that Abe was as resilient as he was when he was in that fight with the big
Wink.
golem
porcupine
thing.
guy.
I think it was
Yeah.
Wink, right?
Wink, yeah.
Wink.
The guy from Fringe, the character
the
from
porcupine
Fringe,
guy
the
from
porcupine
Fringe.
from Fringe. Yeah. So what about the baddies? So we've talked a little bit about the goodies. So I of course, anyone who has a blade, I'm yours forever. So both Kruna with the double blades and Prince Noruda with the the gorgeous blade swinging that he does. And you can, take that as a double entendre if you like. I like both of those characters quite a bit. As Batty and Rasputin, I actually even kind of like him.
I want a superhero movie or an action movie where the bad guys are not Nazis.
In the second
Well,
one,
in the
they
second
were
one, they're not
elves.
Nazis.
That's
They're
true.
elves.
That's true, but the second one wasn't based on one of the Hellboy writings. It was a completely original screenplay.
Well, right, and the Hellboy story starts in 1944. So
I know.
is
Exactly.
it-
That's
is
what I'm
it going to
saying.
be the Italian Nazis? Like,
All I'm saying is when I started the first one, I was like, oh, they're Nazis. Big surprise there.
well, and it's also just because of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Captain America and all the Red Skull stuff that's out right now.
Yeah,
I
there's
mean,
but Indiana Jones is Nazis. Just a lot of things from the 80s. That was the villain.
Sure.
Because we were far enough past it now that we could use it as a villain, So, I don't know.
Yeah, that didn't bother me at all.
I didn't love the squishy creatures that were the bad guys, or the
The tentacle laden.
yeah, I do not love tentacle laden villains and creatures that look like anuses popping up everywhere. Just like, no, I'm good. Give it no.
Are you talking about the
With
second
eyeballs.
one, the like tooth fairy like?
There's
things?
one in the first one.
There's several in the first
Several
one,
in the first
actually.
one.
Yeah.
And then just the journey through the troll market is a festival of things that no evolution would produce. that I'm not thrilled to look at, like lumpy, drippy flesh. And
There was a lot of slime in both of those movies. Quite a lot of slime. Well, so just to give you a clue in the dedication that Mike Mignola makes in the first thing, it's to Jack Kirby and H.P. Lovecraft. And if you're going to use H.P. Lovecraft as a source in your monster creation,
gonna be
they're going to be
tentacles,
tentacles.
yeah.
When you say that, I can see that influence. Like
Yeah.
looking back, I can see that influence.
Yeah. How about you, Sarah?
I did not like all of the eggs. I was really glad that Liz fired them all up.
Flames them, burns them all.
Yeah, because that clumps of eggs, squishy gelatinous eggs, is really gross to me. And then they grew
Well,
so fast.
You didn't think caviar.
Yeah, not a fan of caviar.
No,
Not alien caviar.
Alien caviar.
Although I
like it.
did think if any of them were hungry, here's a fully
That
cooked
might
meal.
be delicious.
Yeah, that's a lot of protein.
We don't know.
We don't
Yeah.
judge.
Someone has to be the first to try that. It might be delicious.
It might be. Abe, get over here.
And just like we find that disgusting, people find eating regular food that we eat disgusting, like bone marrow and beef tongue and stuff like that. Other people think that's
McDonald's.
gross.
Oh
but
my
it's
God,
delicious.
I love beef tongue is so good. So good. Anyway, okay.
Next on
Sorry,
the beef
but I will
tongue
say,
podcast.
Sorry.
On the baddie
Vegetarian
topic,
over here is just like,
Sorry.
on the baddie topic, finish it off. Even though I disliked that they were Nazis, I liked the Rasputin's. I don't know. I don't want to say
like the
mythos again,
parallel.
but I liked his character.
And I like the parallel between the hand that he has when he's making the hole between the dimensions, and
Yeah.
then of course what Hellboy's hands that
Come through,
smells
yeah.
like peanuts. Yeah, and hands seems to be a general theme that is throughout this. Replaced hands, missing hands, mechanical
Arms, yeah.
hands, arms. Any thoughts on why that might be?
Well, I think hands represent control. These are the tools with which we manipulate the world around us physically. And so Rasputin uses the hand tool to open the portal, and through
Right.
it comes Hellboy, who uses the hand to open the dimension. So they're being used as tools, but I think it sort of also kind of metaphorically ties into does he get a choice over the type of control that he wields with his own hand?
Right, the destiny versus you make your own destiny, or your free will versus.
Do you
what the hell am I
change your
trying to say?
stars
Free will
or
versus
not?
destiny.
Yes, change your stars. Yeah, exactly.
Aw.
I think that's a great metaphorical connection there, and I don't think I was paying enough attention to see it. So I think it's really cool that you made those connections.
Well, and
Belonging, I think, is another big thing. Would you guys agree with that? Or
Well, and it was really cute when Liz was standing up for Hellboy after everybody was accusing him of stealing that baby, and she reached over to grab his hand, and then she grabbed his stony hand, and
yeah,
she's like, I accept this man for everything he is, including this hand that is not like his other hand, and it's not like our hands, but fuck you guys.
And literally, this hand is the doorway to hell and the apocalypse.
So
I'm
don't piss
good
him
with
off.
it. Yeah.
I have to say, for me, that was probably is completely nitpicky, but a little bit weak for me because I feel like at the end of the first film there has been information leakage and some acceptance, like in the subway with the little kitten and he saves the box of kittens and you have that lovely moment where they're all like getting licked by the little bitty kitten. It's so cute. So there was a little, for me, there was a little weakness. Yeah, there's a little weakness, and then playing it as this huge reveal in the second movie after the first movie. I don't know. It just didn't sit 100% with me as believable.
I think part of the hands thing maybe ties into a little bit of the belonging, in that our hands are part of what we use to experience life. It's what we touch. It's our, they're sensory objects. It's how we interact with each other. And all of the hand and all, like, it's missing. It's not, they don't have the same contact like we do. Like they don't feel things and explore things with their hands the same way we do. Abe has that ability. Yeah, and that ability, and at the same time it isolates him because he can't touch them without sensing things and knowing things, and that it's a whole, like, there's too many cooks in the kitchen in his head, so his hands are different and Hellboy's hands are different, and they're experiencing life in a different way that makes them somewhat alienated, and while it's amazing, they're alone, or they feel very alone. So,
and in the second movie, the elves are based on like an Irish legend, and they sort of mention it, but I feel like they gloss over it, that both the prince and his father are missing an arm and have had their arms replaced with both mechanical silver arms, and so they also have had a hand or an arm taken and replaced by something other than human,
and have a different experience. Yeah.
And I went back and rewatched it, the Hellboy 2, after Alice and I watched it. And I noticed in the beginning when Broom was telling little baby Hellboy the legend of these elves,
big buck teeth,
that yeah, that was ridiculous.
That bugged me.
But he said, this king that has one arm, and then in the little animation he's motioning with both of his arms, and I was like, is that some kind of mistake? And you're right, they kind of mention it, but they didn't say that they had been replaced or address it at all. I just thought it was a mistake. Like the art department wasn't talking to the script department.
No, but somebody didn't get the note. Yeah. I have to say the animation in the second film when he's telling that story is one of my favorite moments.
It was beautiful.
I love it. And for Hellboy, I'd say one of my favorite moments is that whole opening sequence. And one of my favorite actors, or one of my favorite performances in the first film, is actually the guy who plays Young Broom. It's an actor named, I think, John Trainer. I checked him out on IMDb too, and apparently he hasn't had a very huge career, but I love his performance in that opening sequence.
I love the Broom character. I do.
Just in general?
Just in general.
Yeah,
I agree.
Pretty awesome.
He's like the quirky old fatherly professor that knows he's done wrong. Like, he reminds me a lot of Dumbledore from Harry Potter.
I thought that exact same thought. Yeah, he's our Dumbledore.
So what about other references? So and of course these are themes and stories that get told over and over and over in stories, right? So I mean, the wise old mentor is something that gets used a lot. Lord of the Rings, Men in Black. I feel you could make some especially for the second film, you could make some Men in Black, right? What are some other tie-ins that people saw?
My biggest one was Fringe, in that there's one of the main characters has a father figure this is kind of a mad scientist type that's not technically his biological father,
right? And so the Peter Walter
and
thing.
Walter and Hellboy and Broom, and then and like Gallus was saying, this is a theme that shows up quite frequently in our culture. But at the end of Hellboy 2, when Abe and Liz were making the decision, do you choose your love or do you choose the world? Who would you save? And that Hellboy was obsessed with candy and Walter was obsessed with candy.
Yeah, right. How about you, Krissy? Did you make any other additional?
It tied in for me pretty strongly to stories like Batman and to somewhat a lesser extent Spider-Man, because these are characters who are giving their all to save the world and the cities that they live in and the human beings they feel responsible to, and yet they are rejected by much of the people that they're giving their all to save. So they're making huge sacrifices that are not appreciated or rewarded. So their only reward is that the work is done, not that they're getting accolades for it.
They're being appreciated for it, for sure. So how about in terms of visual looks? That's something we haven't talked about yet. Guillermo del Toro, especially post Pan's Labyrinth. So it goes Devil's Playground 2002, Hellboy 2004, Pan's Labyrinth 2006, and then Hellboy 2 2008. And has everyone seen Pan's Labyrinth?
Yes. I have.
That's the one with
Okay.
David Bowie, right? No, that's The Labyrinth.
That's
No, I have not seen Pan's Labyrinth.
You should see Pan's Labyrinth. It's a really excellent film,
Yes.
but be prepared to be emotionally ruined. I'm just warning. And you'll see a very strong resemblance. So for those of you who have seen it, I would have to say that that's one of the things I actually like about Hellboy is that it's kind of Guillermo del Toro, but it doesn't have that strong stamp on it. And of course, by the time you get to Hellboy 2, post Pan's Labyrinth, it's basically the creatures look very much the same, and it seems almost duplicative.
Yeah, and we were talking about the hands within the whole Hellboy mythos. Guillermo del Toro definitely brings his kind of like eyeball affection in
Everyone's holding up their hands.
Yeah.
Like they have eyeballs in them.
There's
Yes.
the guy from Pan's Labyrinth with the eyeball hands, but then there's
the wings of the death.
Yeah.
And so the character has no eyes of his own, but they're on his wings. He has many eyes.
And then
Creepy.
in the auction house at the beginning, the first guy that gets attacked with some kind of a tentacle monster opens his mouth, and it like turns into an anus that has a little eyeball popping out.
Yeah. Gross.
Yeah.
Gross.
Eyes were also somewhat of a theme.
And that was more like a Guillermo del Toro issue than a Hellboy thing.
Yeah,
that was something that he brought to it specifically. But I kind of like that art. I like what he explores for sure, and it made it markedly different between the first one and the second one. But I did feel like it brought a lot to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's beautiful. I mean, I certainly am not going to hold it against Guillermo del Toro for using that style. It's just sometimes when somebody's a really strong auteur, just like when there's an actor's a really strong actor, I can't see the character anymore. All I can see is the actor.
The hand that crafted it.
Like Tom Cruise in Tom Cruise's movie Tom Cruise.
Yes,
Or
exactly.
like anything by Johnny Depp and
Tim
Tim Burton.
Yeah.
Yeah, anything by Tim Burton is very Tim Burton.
Tim Burton. And sometimes I love it, but then sometimes I feel like it gets a little bit in the way. But I think another really... I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. I think that sometimes that is the choice that you're making when you hire a Tim Burton or a Guillermo, is that you're getting... That's what you're asking for, is to bring your overwhelming perspective to this project.
You're getting exactly what you're going to get.
Well, but I would
look
say
this
that that post Pan's Labyrinth, which was really such a huge success for him, because it's not so strongly in the first film.
Yeah, it's night. I think it's like a night and day difference
Between the two. Although he does work with the same cinematographer, who is Guillermo Navarro.
Yeah.
Guillermo Navarro is the cinematographer.
Boy, that must have been confusing
I
on
know,
set.
right?
Guillermo, we need you.
Wait,
Guillermo?
which Guillermo?
Oh, growing up as a
Guillermo.
Sarah in the 1980s, that was like, Sarah, three of us, what?
Yeah.
But so I think also clearly that cinematographer's style is, I think a lot of the look of the lighting and the play against the reds and in the blues, which I think carry over for both films, although they bring in a little bit more color in the second film with some golds and some reds, with some golds and some greens. I think that blue-red tinge, which plays into blue and red, because they call Hellboy red and A blue. And in that part of it, I think Guillermo Navarro does a beautiful job, and I think the films are gorgeous to look at.
Is that a thing that happens in the comic books too? Those two colors? No.
It's just black
the
and
movie.
red. For the most part, it's
Yeah.
just black and red.
I thought it had a very much like a steampunk feel to it too,
Oh,
which
yeah.
was sort
The
of
second
touched
one.
on. Like the second was very steampunk Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved it. Yes, steampunk. I love that. I think it's true. And I had seen, you had sent that email. I'd seen that before Sarah and I watched it, and so I was totally keen into all of those things, the ring and all of it. Yeah, absolutely. And the symbol of the prince and the princess looks like the Numenorians.
It looks Yes,
Yeah.
it was so similar. Yeah,
Yeah,
the
it's
tree.
very, very similar. Andrea made a statement when we were chatting that she thought this was the original comic book movie of this generation.
I want to, because we've had Batmans for since what, like,
It's been 75 years of Batman.
for like forever, right? We've had Batman since Adam West, but I mean, this was, if you talk about how right now it could be looked at as a super heavy comic book time for mainstream movies, like you know, Marvel's got movies planned out to 2018, DC's starting to come out with a lot of,
and television.
and a lot of television. We're really comic book superhero heavy right now. But if you want to think about what really started that, Hellboy in 2004.
I disagree. So by the time Hellboy 2004 came out, you'd had 2 X-Men movies, you'd had 2 Blade movies, you'd had a Spider-Man movie, you'd had several Batman movies, as we said. We'd had Daredevil, although we won't talk about it. So there had actually been Unbreakable, which many people don't know is based on a comic book. I mean, we'd had quite a handful, starting probably late 90s, actually. So I personally, and of course we're all free to have our own opinions, I personally don't feel like this necessarily was the big push toward comic book movies. For me, it would be more X-Men and Spider-Man, frankly, for me personally.
But do you think that it could have been, this was the first character maybe that we met that wasn't somebody that even the most casual observer already had a relationship to? Because even just by existing in the world, we know Batman,
and we know
Spider-Man, we know X-Men.
I disagree. So my sister is not geeky at all, and so she doesn't. X-Men was totally who.
But Hellboy, I feel like, is really like a deep reach, even for you know, self-affirmed nerds and geeks. Like, maybe that's not something that we would have reached for ourselves. So we were giving something alternative to the big 3 or 4 or 5.
But what I was going to ask you before you started answering was define original. Do you mean first? Do you mean different? Do you mean, what does original mean?
I think
define this generation, because of course you and I aren't of the same generation. So
right.
Which generation are you talking about?
When I'm talking about generation, I'm talking about this multi-million blockbuster running comic book. I don't know what you want to call it, superstardom right now. But I think Krissy nailed it. I think for me, it was the first non-mainstream character we really got to fall in love with. And you're right. I had no idea that Unbreakable was based on a comic.
Yeah. Well, and for me, Blade, I was a big Blade fan. So, and Blade's also based on a comic book. So for me,
and Blade was also Dark Horse, wasn't it?
Blade was Marvel.
Okay.
Perfect.
So, and there really aren't a lot of very prominent Dark Horse comic book movies, and which was why we thought maybe this was the only one, but it's not. But I think you're right that it kind of is an alternative comic book movie.
Yeah, for sure. I agree.
But done in a similar style. Fun to watch, action packed, spunky characters,
but not necessarily somebody you're going to see his logo on a t-shirt in Target.
Yeah.
Does he have a logo?
Yeah. It's the logo for the
Knife.
for the
On
Bureau
the
of
belt?
Paranormal Research.
Is it the one that on the belt when she was like, I have this shiny belt thing for you?
Yes.
It's like a hand holding the hilt of a knife.
Yeah, exactly.
We should make t-shirts like that.
Let's do it, gals.
I feel 100% positive that you can buy them.
Seth MacFarlane?
Oh, yeah.
This was his first major motion picture as the
I
voice
loved it.
of
Johann.
Johann.
Yeah. I was blown away by that.
So
I was just like, yeah.
I read on that because I saw him in the IMDb credits, because I like to look before I watch a movie or when I'm watching it, I like to look through them and just see what to expect. And when I saw him, I was like, holy crap.
Yeah, super exciting.
And so I was reading about it, and I guess the actor, there's a body who plays Johann, and then there's a voice who plays Johann. And they didn't use the actor because Del Toro thought when he spoke, it came out too mechanical and not full of enough personality. So that's when they hired Seth MacFarlane.
And what a treasure they found.
Yeah, and Sara had a revelation about voice actors as well.
Thank you. Thanks to Alice. I was watching the first Hellboy, and I was like, whose voice is that's playing Abe? Whose voice is that? And I went up on IMDb and looked, and I'm like, Doug Jones, who is that guy? And I look, and he's not in anything that I might have recognized him in. And he played the Fauno in Pan's Labyrinth, and then I was, no, that's still not, well, no, that wouldn't, no, that's not where I would recognize him from. And it was driving me nuts. Every time he spoke, I was like, who is this? And I was like ready to scream. And then I look up Hellboy 2 just to see who's in it, because, you know, there was a hot guy and I had to check out for a couple of seconds. And so I see 2 people playing Johann, and I was like, oh, Seth MacFarlane is one of them. Okay, that's weird that they would okay, I guess so. And then I brought it up to Alice, and she was like, oh, David Hyde Pierce. And I was like, oh my God, that's it.
And he doesn't take a credit, so unless you know, you wouldn't know.
Right.
And he didn't come back for the second one. Doug Jones actually did the voice and the acting.
Yeah, because David Hyde Pierce recused himself because he felt like it was Doug Jones' work.
Yeah.
Right. I did have one thing that really burned me up inside.
Oh my God, let's hear it.
Say it. It is the pointless gambits used by both villains. It's used by Rasputin and his lady, who I can't remember their name, where they pay the gold bar and then kill the dude.
Yeah.
Like, why?
Well, it's
what
because
are you doing?
I'm trying to remember. In Blade, there's always in the blood has to trickle through the maze to then bring Rasputin alive, and a very similar thing happens in Blade as well.
And then in the second one, when the prince kidnaps his twin, we know he's not going to hurt her. He can't.
He can't. Yeah.
So why are we even worried about this?
But he could imprison her indefinitely.
Well, it's because Abe loves her. He's doing it from a I love her and I want to set her free standpoint.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
But he'd be, I'm going to kill her. Nope, you're not going to.
You're not going to kill her.
Then that fight that he and Hellboy had, which while gorgeous, I was like, what do you mean you're not trying to kill him? And if he couldn't block any of those shots, then you were gonna kill him. What is this fight about?
So on that note, first of all, when we're sitting there watching it and the fight starts, I'm like, wait a second, if she just kills herself, this whole thing's over. And my husband looks at me and he's like, shut up. And
clearly he'd seen it before.
Yeah, he'd seen them already. But at that point, both movies had two women. Just two.
Yep.
And they never spoke to each other.
Nope.
And they never interacted on any capacity at all. I think Nuala and Liz were in the same place, opposite sides of the screen. And there was not even looking at each other.
They couldn't even ask each other for a tampon if they wanted to.
I know.
No.
But I would totally I would totally give one if needed.
Yeah, you don't want to lend.
I'd certainly give a condom. Anyway.
No, we need those super babies, Alice. This is our future.
I forgot.
Oh man, imagine a Liz Prince Nuala baby with pale skin and dark hair.
And the fire.
Yeah, it'd be pretty freaking sexy.
Fire swords, maybe? Fire knives?
Fire knives.
I love it. All right, thank you for joining us today. This has been Alice.
Sarah.
Andrea.
And guest host, Krissy. Yes, who joined us from NCT. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what's going on at NCT?
Oh, I would love to. Thank you. So NCT is National Comedy Theater, and we present competitive improvisational comedy shows every Friday and Saturday. So it's all made up on the spot. It's based on audience interaction, and the shows are all ages.
And they are hilarious.
Oh, thank you.
They are so hilarious.
Thank you.
You want to tell us a little bit about First Time Film Club, too?
Oh, absolutely. That's kind of a project that NCT is doing in collaboration with Bookmans, who we love. Bookmans, yay, Bookmans. And so what we do is choose films that are classics, but maybe not the cult classics that get revived very often. And we do sort of an educating Geeks take on it. Why every time we screen a movie, we have one person who's our guest who has never seen it before, who's experiencing it for the first time. The goal is to spread those films across the world to make sure everyone has seen them. And upcoming, we have The Burbs on October 30th, followed by a really special screening of Ghostbusters 2 on December 18th.
What makes it special?
The AZ Ghostbusters, who are fantastic, as you guys know, are going to be there for photo ops. They're bringing their life-size Vigo the Carpathian for photo ops.
Nice.
We're doing instead of buying a ticket, you can bring a donation of an unwrapped toy or just cash money donation. And we're also going to be doing a raffle to benefit an organization called PeptUp.org, which gives tablets and learning devices to kids who are in the hospital. And you guys will be there.
One of those special events is that we will be recording a First Time Film Club podcast. And actually, Drea and Krissy, you both will be on it. Somebody from Ghostbusters AZ, and then our first timer.
Who's not booked yet.
Who's not booked yet.
But
So
will
that
be
will be
soon.
exciting.
If you haven't seen Ghostbusters 2, contact Krissy.
Yes,
Contact
please
Krissy.
come to the show.
Krissy at nctphoenix.com.
Oh, well, certainly for us, I know you guys are all websited up and social media up. So nctphoenix.com?
nctphoenix.com.
Cool. And we're educatinggeeks.com. And you can listen to the podcast there. You can listen to it on Stitchers or iTunes, SoundCloud, the website. And we would really appreciate it if you would give us a review, a thumbs up, a comment, anything to give us some feedback. We really like to hear from you. And if you do listen on Stitcher or iTunes, go ahead and subscribe to our channel, because then you get the latest podcast right as it becomes available. And it's very convenient and fast and easy. So we use #EducatingGeeks, and we can be found on Facebook, Tumblr, Google+, and Twitter. And today we'd like to give a shout out to some of our new Twitter followers. We have Phoenix 2009, Author L. Rossi, and Siri Thray, who's out of Tempe here locally. So thank you guys all for following us, and we really hope you enjoy what you find, and we really enjoy having conversations with you. So the Hellboy Geek Supplies is going to come out next Wednesday, the 29th of October, and then in celebration of Halloween, how perfect is this? The Educating Geeks Drinking Game Rules podcast is going to come out on Halloween.
Woo!
Beautiful.
Or boo.
And then the next time on both the Educating Geeks podcast and the Drinking Games podcast, I will be educating Sara, Andrea, and Bree on one of my favorite campy 60s sci-fi romps, Barbarella.
I can't tell you how excited I am for this.
Yeah. I hope we're having a viewing party.
We should, for that one, we should totally have a viewing party. All right, everybody, thanks so much for joining us. Bye.